everyone, Adrian here over at the Sampleist. We're going to drift in the dark expanse of cinematic sound design with AXIS Oblivion from Barcode Industries. This is a library full of ARPs and sequences designed for creating deep and mysterious rhythm beds, but it can do so much more than this, as we will see throughout the review. AXIS Oblivion features a 32-step sequencer and arpeggiator with 5 sonic transformation modules. This allows you to create and design some truly epic and pounding sequences alongside lighter ambient moments. In all, we have 125 sampled instruments, from bell tones and ambient plucks to muted and fractured acoustic strings. There are over 275 snapshots to get you up and running in this library that provide ambient tones, deep bass lines, industrial rhythms and even mangled effects. This is the library to invoke dramatic, energetic and what is really required for modern film scoring. AXIS Oblivion is available now on introductory pricing of $199. Once this period is over, it will be on sale for $299. You will require the full version of Contact 6.7.1 or higher. This will not work with the free Contact player, so you will need to buy or already have the full version of Contact. If you do have Contact 7, that's perfectly fine, it will work in that as well. You will need 8GB of RAM, but 16GB or more is recommended, as naturally the more memory you have, the smoother a library will run. At just 3GB of disk space, let's take a listen to what this library sounds like as we travel through a selection of the 275 snapshots. Now we've played a selection of the sounds from this library, let's take a look at in the interface. And very handily, all of this is crammed really into two sort of like screens. We've got the main page here and we've got the arpeggiator page. So we'll start with the source. Basically every patch in here is made up either one sound source, 2, 3 or 4. If you press that button there you get 4, and if you want to remove a sound source just click the X. Now if I click on this where it says all, I get to choose which bank I'm going to select a sound source from. So if I go percussive, I can choose any of the percussive sound sources. Ethereal, I get to choose any of the ethereal sound sources there, and I can then add a sound character to each one. So straight away you're probably thinking this has got an awful lot of sound design possibilities, and you would be right, because if we just say ethereal harmonics, I'll just mute these layers here and play. Now I want to change something. Let's go for, I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's go for hazy. So So straight away we've got a different type of sound. If we put air on, interesting in the sense it takes away all the bottom end. You can change the volume, you can pan, and you can transpose. So if I want to transpose that back to normal pitch, and then we can change here the velocities. It sort of changes the start times as well, sorry. So if I just change that and move that over positive, see how that changes the sound straight away. And this is just one layer I've played with. I've got another 4 to play with here if I want to. So if I unmute that one and unmute that one, and I can then select the plus button, and that will bring in my 4th layer. So if I want to put a 4th layer in, let's choose muted tight. That's a bit loud, so we're going to turn that down to -12. So straight away we've got a very usable sequence sound. I'm only playing with one hand. If I play both hands as I would normally play this type of sequence, we end up with this. Down below here we have different effects modules. We have a module here to change the colour of the sound, so let's make it globally tight. Change the hue. Now I can turn that off by just selecting that button there. We can bring in some punch. It's currently off, but if I put it on, we can introduce some smack, crush, and destroy. So I'll turn that off for now. We also have the ability to add some dirt to the sound. Now it's like a tube effect, so you can boost. You've got all these. Got a different type of amps and all sorts to play with here. Let's go for trance. Turn the drive off a bit. Got different cabinets to play with. So if let's go for contrails. That's an interesting effect. Normal tape. So straight away, you know, you can really get quite deep into a bit of sound manipulation here. We then have one strip across here to affect the global transpose, volume, which is gain, the dynamics, soft or loud. You can change the filter to different types of filter, softer, harder, bold. So what happens here is if I play a sequence, well, a chord, we get a sequence. Can change the impact. So you don't get a harsh hit there. And size, sort of, it's like a pseudo reverb. It's not quite a reverb, but it's a pseudo one where it alters how long the sample rings out afterwards. See what I mean? I'm getting nothing now, but as I bring this on, I can make a drum sound just straight away. So I'll go from that to a drum. Quite powerful, and you can again change the overall output. We then have some delay on the left here, and you got reverb, on the right, and just basic delay and reverbs that you would expect. So I'm not going to go through the controls here, because if you've used delay and reverb, you know how they're going to sound and how they're going to work. The interesting thing here is, instead of a wet dry mix, we have sort of like 4 presets: a low, a wet, absolutely soaked, or drenched, drowned in that type of effect. So just bring on echo. So if I bring it back to wet. And an interesting thing is, if you're using your own external reverb and echo, if I turn this off and press lock, now if I change the sounds around, I'm not going to do this now, but if I change the sounds around, what will happen is it will remember not to load the reverb in, so it won't clash with the reverb you've already got loaded in your DAW, which is a really interesting and handy feature. So that's the sort of main front page here, and we're going to just jump into the ARP section here. I should add that very, very interesting, when you first load this instrument, you will get like a PowerPoint walkthrough of what all these controls do, which is quite an interesting touch and helpful to actually orientate you around the instrument in a very, very quick and smart fashion. So if we look at the ARP section, this is where things do get a little interesting, get even more interesting later, but this is where things get slightly interesting. Is we can program in sequences, and you've got a whole range of presets here. So an unfortunate one called 4/4 Epidemic. I think we've all sort of had enough of epidemics. So I've got 32 steps playing there. I can change that to, say, 8, and it'll change to 8. Now I can invert, and I can reverse. And then what we can do, if I click these, it will do like a ratchet effect and play them double. Now if I turn that one off and I turn this one on, it will play as a chord, that step. Now if I want to program a pitch in, I can do. I can say 12, 24, let's go for 24. Now I can set the whole lot to an octave up. Change the rates to whole tones. Oh no, we'll go quarters, and we'll do double speed. So we've got the normal quarter speed, sorry, and this halves it, halves the speed, triples the length in the sense before the next note comes. So you've got quite a lot of ways to mess around with your sequence here. Can change your directions to forward, backwards, random, and the playback will go either up, down, then down, down then up, or random. So if I set all this to random, we get this. And now I can change the volume with these, the entire volume, just these up and down ones. Shift the sequence left and right. I can randomize the velocity. So straight away there is quite a lot you can do with this sequence. Now, this is where things get very interesting, as not only can you import your own WAV and AIF files into this instrument, but you also can drag and drop in NCW files. Yes, that is instruments that are for Contact and have been saved in the Contact library format, the NCW. So that's the Native Instruments compressed wave format. So this does give you massive scope to expand this instrument even further. So if I just nip into source, and I am going to drag and drop in a particular sound. I'm just going to drag that into there, import, and now if I select user 1 and mute all these channels, I just need to change that sample start time. There we go. Now if I mix that with the already existing samples, we have something completely new now that wasn't in this instrument to start with. Now I can go a bit further. I can say, I'll tell you what, let's drag and drop in this sample. So I'm going to change that now to user 2. And we get a completely different sound again. Move that along. So you can probably now see how useful this instrument's going to be for creating very different sonic soundscapes. You can import drum samples, long textures that have got a bit of rhythm into them. You know, your world's your oyster, really. It's a great feature, not just to only allow WAV and AIF import, but to allow you to import samples from a completely different Contact library. It breathes new life into other libraries you have on your hard drive. One last thing to show you really with this instrument is that predominantly this is an arpeggiator sequence instrument, but you do have some fantastic sounds if you do one trick, a whole sort of like range of additional fantastic sounds, shall we say, and that is by, strangely enough, disabling the ARP. So if you disable the ARP, we go from this to this. So if we take another sound from the ambient selection and we say Wandering Spirits, normally it sounds like this. And let's just try and load that again. And that's because the cutoff was open. So we've got a nice plucky sound here. So if I turn the arpeggiator off, we end up with this. So, and really experiment with this instrument. There is so much you can do with this. I need to stop going through this interface and giving you all these tips, because otherwise this video will be really long. Now that we've heard some of the sounds, played with the interface and done a little sound design, let's take a listen to what we can do with the sounds from this library in a simple composition. So a nice piece of electronica to demonstrate the sounds of this library. It's a little longer than my normal demos that I do for these reviews, but I wanted to show how you can build sonic soundscapes from something really sparse in instrumentation through to really deep throbbing sort of like rhythmic pieces. As you probably can gather, this whole track is actually built on sort of like a systems type music where you start of adding bits as you go along and slowly get to a crescendo and then make it all disappear. And it's all built on this very, very simple riff. Just play this. And that's using astrological divination. Now, if I just pop into this particular sound, just pop it up on the screen, we will see that I've actually turned the arpeggiator off on this particular track, just so as I can get a nice little sort of plucky sound. Now, if I turn the arp on, it will still work. But it just sounds slightly different. So never be afraid to sort of like experiment with this library in the sense of, turn things on and off, turn sources on and off, and you'd be surprised at how much mileage, well, extra mileage you'll actually get out of this library. Now, to introduce the whole track, we used two little textures here. Trash bin, which I let go throughout the track, which goes like this. And at the beginning, we mix it with this creeping along. This is the problem with MIDI, is if you start it halfway through a beat, it sends the whole thing off. So I'll just go back to the beginning of the bar. So that's the introduction part sorted. And we then have some sort of paddy type strings, this hypnotic aura. And it goes like this. If I just go back to bar, I think it's this bar. Very quiet. So why have I got two tracks? Well, if you see this little block here, that's me moving the mod wheel all the way forward and then just backing it off slightly, and it's sort of like completely different sound. It just mutes it, sort of the effect. So best play it and I explain. So this is the mod wheel fully open, which is too bright for what I was after. So if I back the mod wheel off a bit, get a slightly duller sound, which is what we were after. So just so I was going to get this set at the right, just play at the beginning. Right, so that's right for the rest of the track when I bring in the other parts now. But on that introductory bit, I didn't want that. I wanted the mod wheel completely closed, so it's a very, very muted sound. Then we have this nice deep bass called Fuse, which comes in. So that adds more drive to the track. And then when we get to this sort of like first real part of the track, I would say, we bring in pretty much the kitchen sink, and we bring in some drums, and we bring in a lead. So we'll start with the drums, and we end up with this percussion full. It's a midnight high, so this is a full drum loop coming on. Then I wanted some hi-hats, so we brought in these crickets. And again, if you start on the bar, everything will be in time. Then we wanted a snare to go with it, and so this is where hyperbolic comes in. And then to sort of like really make the track take off, we mixed two sort of lead type sounds. Well, I made them into lead sounds because this whole library is just arpeggiations and sequences. So I used No Quarter and Dreamcatcher. Now, No Quarter, I actually left, because I'm playing short notes, I actually left the arpeggiator on. But for Dreamcatcher, I just bring that up, actually turned it off. So we've got two nice contrasting sounds here. We've got this one. And then we have Dreamcatcher. Just play that from here actually, and then you get the feel of how it all goes together. And there was space for one last track to fit into this, and it's Close Metropolis, and this is a sort of like true arpeggiated sequence going on here. Sort of like bouncing chords, like a dance rave type beat. And then when we put all that together, we end up with this. And there we go, a little track just using sounds from this library, and there was no external effects added. All I've done is just panned instruments around. And if we just nip into there, see, no external effects. So what you heard is what you actually get with this library. AXIS Oblivion, a truly stunning library. There's something for any modern film composer, and also those electronic musicians looking for industrial tones. Not only do you get some really interesting sequences and patterns, but some great sounding instruments that can be accessed by just turning off the artboard sequence. Being able to import your own samples really adds value for money and will provide longevity to this library. Enabling you to import NCW files, that's the compressed Native Instruments compressed WAV files, will also add a new lease of life to existing Kontakt libraries that you may have on your hard drive. Having all the sound design tools accessible on one page is really helpful and does allow you to get straight into the sound design aspect without getting lost in sort of like different tabs or pages or multiple menus. It's what I call menu diving. You know, you don't have to do that with this instrument, it's just there in your face. The sequencer allows you to program simple patterns all the way to some very complicated sequences, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this library and would certainly recommend that you check this one out, especially if you are in need of some driving patterns for your project. We would like to thank Barcode Industries for sending AXIS Oblivion across for a review. It's very much appreciated. And if you would like to stay up to date with all the latest music software, then smash this subscribe button, that little thing underneath the video, just smash that. And in the meantime, stay creative, stay sonic, and I'll catch you in the next one.